This is Oppidum in the Mediterranean. 2,200 years ago, this natural basin in the south of France was inhabited by people from Greece and controlled by the Roman Empire. In the 1970s, peasants in the nearby village of Montordi that overlook these ancient fields reported orbs of light, UFOs, flying above these fields. This 1970s UFO flap went on for a whole year. The world's most famous ufologist is actually Jacques Vallée, who presented UFO evidence from France and all over the world at the United Nations in 1978. Shards of pottery from 2,000 years ago, unearthed at Oppidum, show the shape of crops peppered with circular indentations. This phenomenon is known as grape shot and is a common feature of many crop circles. These 2,200-year-old vases show UFOs in the sky dropping small balls of light. Horseshoe-shaped UFOs are actually a common sighting in Mexico and the Mediterranean. At Oppidum, something very, very important happened in the distant past. Something so important that the people there commemorated the existence of crop circles and UFOs on hundreds of clay pots, dishes, and vases. This, surely, is proof that the crop circle phenomenon is at least 2,200 years old in this part of Europe. In fact, not only at Oppidum do we see these circular markings carved into rock. We see these circular markings at Newgrange in Ireland and in many other megalithic sites. The megalithic period These circular markings could represent the egg or ovum, or could possibly represent spiral galaxies. The resemblance of the pottery at Oppidum to modern-day crop circles is remarkable. There are literally hundreds of examples of crop circle designs to be found here. On this bowl we see a spiral in a circle, maybe showing an aerial view of a tumulus with 4 circles around it. Notice the etching on the bowl. This could perhaps represent the flattened crop. Are these bowls and dishes commemorating in some way a celestial event such as a supernova? Or are they actually showing us that crop circles that we film in the fields of Britain and other countries worldwide today used to appear 2,200 years ago in the Mediterranean? Certainly, the similarity between these 2,000-year-old shards of pottery and modern-day crop circles is remarkable. Time and time again at Oppidum, we see remarkable similarities between designs that were etched onto pottery and bowls and vases 2,000 years ago, and the crop circles which are appearing in our fields today. In 1991, key shapes began to appear on the enormous crop circles which appeared near Alton Barnes in Wiltshire. One of these pictograms was featured on the Led Zeppelin album Remasters. The key motif which we see on some crop circles may symbolize that these pictograms are showing us planetary alignments. They could be solar systems, or showing us different phases of a planet or a star's evolution. Interestingly, keys is the term given to incantation calls used by magicians to summon spirits, angels, and demons. The Kabbalah Tree of Life, which is a roadmap to the spirit world, has also appeared time and time again in crop circles which appear very close to ancient megalithic sites. Of course, we should actually say that there are crop circle hoaxers. These people are paid by TV companies and newspapers to fake crop circles. Here we see National Geographic Television paying Team Satan to hoax a crop circle. Now interestingly, Team Satan have reported that whilst making fake crop circles, they have seen orbs of light and UFOs fly across the fields. It seems that small orbs of light often fly down from the upper atmosphere and check out man-made circles, as if certain pictograms or certain symbols, certain sacred, ancient, magical talismans attract these balls of light. For thousands of years, since the dawn of time, magicians have used sigils and symbols to invoke spirits. In voodoo, these are drawn on the ground. Each of the demonic entities described in the famous Book of Howling actually has a sigil or symbol which is unique to that particular spirit. Three people who I have interviewed for the making of this film, who claim to make crop circles, have reported that orbs of light often fly down and observe the man-made symbol on the ground. And sometimes an extra motif is added to a crop circle, as if there is a symbolic communication between the person making the crop circle and these mysterious balls of light. At Oppidum, the people living there 2,200 years ago carefully carved and etched crop circle type patterns on bowls and plates and vases. With closer inspection, another aspect to this mystery unfolds. The crop circle symbols are combined with the shape of hallucinogenic mushrooms and plants. In the ancient world, especially in the Mediterranean, there were mystery schools performing high ceremonial magical rituals designed to attract nature spirits or angels, or sometimes to attract the spirits of actual planets. Hallucinogenic potions were drunk from specially made bowls and cups. At Oppidum, amongst the dozens and dozens of artifacts which contain crop circle iconography and images of UFOs, we see cups with strange, non-human faces. Is this the face of a spirit, the face of a god, or the face of a cosmic intelligence which was summoned and worshipped at Oppidum more than 2,000 years ago? Many people have alleged that there is a crop circle conspiracy. The truth of the matter seems to be this: that National Geographic Television and the mainstream media in general have often collaborated with crop circle hoaxers and people who claim to be crop circle hoaxers in order to make TV shows. These hoaxers are claiming that genuine crop circles have been made by members of Team Satan. Now, whether you believe the footage is real or not, one cannot deny that thousands of people who have visited crop circles have all seen military helicopters flying and hovering over the crop circles. If all these crop circles and UFOs were faked, then why on earth would Her Majesty's Armed Forces be so interested in these faked designs? This is another aspect to the crop circle conspiracy. No matter which way you look at it, the luminous balls of light filmed in the upper atmosphere by NASA astronauts aboard the space shuttle, the UFOs which we see flying around the skies above cities such as New York and Mexico City, and the small luminous spherical balls of light which we see making the crop circles, all seem to be very, very similar. Can every single one of these pieces of footage be fake? Are we to say that NASA astronauts are faking footage? No. What we're dealing with is an invasion of small spherical UFOs, which I believe are probes from an intelligent race who are investigating us and our planet. An intelligent race who I believe are communicating with us using sacred geometric symbolism.
High above the earth, grouped together with no explanation, these clips show what's being described as swarms of UFOs. Earlier this year in Seoul in South Korea, a crowd gathers to stare up beyond the skyscrapers into the sky. A group of objects hover above the center of the city for a few seconds, then they disappear. In Mexico 3 years earlier, a very similar sight. Clearer this time, the group of white objects are baffling the people below.
Mira las esferas. Son un chorro. Aquí arriba. ¿Ya las viste? Qué maravilla, ¿verdad?
Zooming in still closer, we find that there are even smaller groupings.
One day, after I'd made a film about crop circles and UFOs, about a month after the film was released, about 10 years ago, I started to receive cardboard boxes which had no postcard or letter in them. They were full of VHS cassettes, and somebody had recorded the direct feeds from the space shuttle as it orbited the Earth. Now these pieces of video footage had actually been shown on NASA Select television, but the videotapes which I received anonymously in cardboard boxes were the raw feeds from cameras which the astronauts were using. The video cameras which are aboard the space shuttle have filters on them. They have night vision capability. They have image intensifying capability, which degrades the quality of the actual video image. But that whole period proved to me again that there was something very, very odd happening in the space immediately around planet Earth, and that NASA astronauts were basically spending all of their time recording these unidentified flying objects.
Looks like you got an object right in front of you, Mark. Can you look out there? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Never mind. Are we missing something? It's about your 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock going away. Don't worry about it. Alright, that's good. Let's go out.
On the 24th of August in 1990, near the town of Lubin in Germany, a chap called Valery Vinogradov filmed a cluster of UFOs. He says that he saw many people looking up at the sky, and it's no wonder because you see a circular cluster of unidentified flying objects with a object in the center and another object off to the southern tip. And it's a fascinating piece of footage because we see a sphere go towards the cluster and then disappear with more objects further south. This is obviously very similar to an official NASA photograph taken during the STS-80 flight of the space shuttle, and that took place on the 19th of November 1996. And these images were taken with the Orpheus SPAS remote satellite, which is taken up in the payload bay of the space shuttle and released into space, where it drifts free. And the Orpheus satellite has been designed by DARA, which is the Deutschland German Space Agency. It looks into the ultraviolet light spectrum, and these images show we're looking down on the Earth's atmosphere, and you can see these UFOs taking up a circular formation, and objects are coming from behind the space shuttle or behind the satellite, and then as they reach the upper atmosphere they light up. And this is very similar to what Valery Vinogradov filmed in Germany. And then we have amateur astronomers posting various clips of UFOs on the lunar surface, and this has come from an amateur astronomer who lives on the Franco-Italian border. And this is a mosaic of small QuickTime movies which have been filmed in black and white from the lunar surface. And in the bottom left-hand corner you see this dark object. It's passing the Eudoxus crater. These craters are very, very large. Most craters on the moon are between 10, 20, 30 kilometers across. I estimate this object to be around 25 kilometers in diameter. Now it's either an actual object or it's a shadow of an object which is passing over the lunar surface. The distortion that you see is due to atmospheric aberrations. And here we see the object, it stops, it's pausing, and where it was going from left to right, we now see the object pause. These jumps are not being made by the object itself, they're gaps in the actual QuickTime video recording facility of the telescope. And now you can see that the object is heading in a completely different direction. Now if this was a natural object, say for example an asteroid, which had been caught in the gravitational pull of the moon, then it wouldn't change direction. And now we see it traversing a crater. There's some craters are so large on the moon they have craters inside them. Those Bailey craters are about 30 kilometers across, so we can see that this is a very, very large object. And you can see that it's going now off the northern quadrant of the moon, and there it leaves, or it goes round the horizon, and there is a track of this object's movements. Its trajectory is totally unlike any natural phenomenon. And one has to wonder if in 1991, during the space shuttle flight STS-48, that these objects filmed by NASA astronauts in the upper atmosphere and just outside the atmosphere are also coming from the moon. And 6 years later, during mission STS-80, which had filmed the circular formation of UFOs, there is also ultraviolet footage showing a very large object emerging, coming out of the Earth's atmosphere. And there are also many other objects as well. On the left of the screen there are 3 stationary objects. There are presumably meteorites streaking past, and there from the Earth's atmosphere you see a very, very large object which is possibly 20 kilometers in diameter. And I suspect that this footage was filmed by the Orpheus Space DARA remote satellite pointing back down onto the Earth's atmosphere. And these objects which you see coming away from the Earth really shouldn't be there. Every object should be captured by the Earth's gravity. And that large object that emerges from the atmosphere is a complete and utter mystery. Now the moon has been thoroughly mapped, and there's ongoing moon mapping missions with satellites going around the lunar surface taking high definition photographs. Nearly every couple of years there's a mission like that. And what I've done here is I've got a moon atlas, which has been stitched, all these individual JPEG images from various lunar surveying missions have been stitched together. And the near face of the moon never changes as far as our point of view is on planet Earth. The moon does not rotate, and so there's always this hidden dark side of the moon. And in this animation we can go from pole to pole. And as each year goes by, the quality of the images which we get from the lunar surface are increasing and increasing and increasing. It's interesting that I've never seen any lunar survey images which have been sharp enough detail to show any of the landing sites of the Apollo missions. What French astronomers have done is they've mapped these high-res images from the NASA archive onto a three-dimensional spherical model of the moon. This is the near side of the moon with all of its so-called seas. These are where liquid lava 100 million years ago leaked into large crater areas or depressed areas, and many of these seas are fairly level and featureless. But as we go onto the dark side of the moon, this is the coming around now, this is the side of the moon which we never really see. You can see that there's quite a difference in the topography and the geography of the dark side of the moon. There's not so many of these flat areas which are shown up in this animation as being dark. And let's face it, it's a very large object, and if aliens were to come to Earth, it would be a very, very useful stopping off place, because, as I said earlier, the near side of the moon is always the same side of the moon which we see from Earth. This animation of the moon does not rotate, so we never see the dark side of the moon, and therefore it could potentially be a very useful place for extraterrestrials to have a landing stage and stop off before they enter the Earth's atmosphere. And I believe that the space shuttle and the Dara Orpheus satellites and other equipment are being used to track UFOs which are visiting the atmosphere and planet Earth as they come from the moon.
We have an unidentified flying object.
As the Secretary General of the United Nations, an organization of 147 member states who represent almost all of the human inhabitants of the planet Earth, I send greetings on behalf of the people of our planet. We step out of our solar system into the universe seeking only peace and friendship, to teach if we are called upon, to be taught if we are fortunate. We know full well that our planet and all its inhabitants are but a small part of this immense universe that surrounds us, and it is with humility and hope that we take this step.
In the 1970s, NASA, with the assistance of Professor Frank Drake and Carl Sagan, designed 4 man-made interstellar probes. 2 were called Pioneers, and 2 were called Voyagers. 2 of these probes are still sending data and images back to NASA to this day. They are way beyond Pluto and in deep, deep space. However, you can hardly find any information about the data being sent back to us from the official NASA website and public relations offices. These probes were partly powered by plutonium and a gravitational slingshot after photographing Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. Aboard these probes, there are gold-plated plaques of copper and video discs with recordings of people's voices, music, singing, and more than 100 images of tribal people, landscapes, and the Earth's oceans. The video discs are sealed in solid gold cases and have a stylus to play themselves. Any intelligent extraterrestrial would be able to see what humans sound like, hear many dozens of different types of languages, look at our naked bodies, and be able to find planet Earth easily by using a map designed by Carl Sagan showing the Earth's position in relation to 14 pulsar stars. These plaques and video discs are the perfect interstellar calling card, inviting any alien race to come to planet Earth. During the 1970s, the highest levels of NASA management were still being run by Nazis such as Werner von Braun, who had previously been an SS officer developing the secret space program for the Royal Bavarian Third Reich. Not surprisingly, the golden discs of the 2 Voyager craft contain a welcome message from the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Kurt Waldheim. Before he represented all nations on planet Earth as Secretary General of the United Nations, Kurt Waldheim was the President of Austria. He was also a former Nazi SS officer, found out to be complicit with war crimes, and it was Kurt Waldheim who presided over a meeting about UFOs with Dr. Alan Hynek and Jacques Vallée at the United Nations in New York in 1978. Within months of this meeting, the Star Wars weapons program was launched. It is very, very obvious that NASA invested huge amounts of money into the Pioneer and Voyager projects, carefully designing golden plaques and golden records which would entice aliens to our planet. However, where is the contingency plan in case of alien invasion? Where are the NASA guidelines on how to initiate communication with these aliens if they do indeed find these disks and arrive on planet Earth? Officially, all NASA astronauts I have spoken to say that they have never been given any training whatsoever. They've never been told how to deal with an encounter with an alien. It is very, very clear from the writings of the people who attended the meeting about UFOs at the United Nations that some kind of protocol, a secret protocol to communicate with aliens, had indeed been planned secretly by officials. It was the French ufologist Jacques Vallée who first postulated a series of hand signals, sounds, and colors which would be used to communicate with aliens. It was Jacques Vallée who inspired the character in the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, played by Frenchman François Truffaut. In the film, it is a Frenchman who is organizing the first meeting with aliens, and who is in charge of NASA operations at a secret facility out in the desert, far, far away from where members of the public can see the first historic meeting of humans and aliens. Pioneer 10 was the first of these man-made probes carrying a gold-plated map to be sent into interstellar space. Pioneer 10 was launched by NASA on March 2, 1972 to study Jupiter and eventually study interstellar deep space. While the spacecraft is believed to still operate properly to this day, communication has been lost since January the 23rd, 2003. Before this, Pioneer 10 was in extended mission to study the dynamics of the solar system boundary, including interplanetary magnetic fields, the solar wind, cosmic rays, and the so-called heliosphere. It seems that as soon as Pioneer 10 reached the boundary of the heliosphere, this is the place where the cosmic particles ejected from our sun end, which is a teardrop-shaped bubble that stretches for millions of miles into space beyond Pluto. As soon as Pioneer 10 reached the outer boundary of the heliosphere, all communications with it abruptly ceased. This was not the first time that one of these probes carrying a map of how to find planet Earth mysteriously ceased operating. Pioneer 11, also known as Pioneer G, as in the letter G found in the international symbol for Freemasonry, a very apt name considering that many NASA astronauts and technicians are Freemasons, was launched by NASA on April the 6th, 1973 to study Jupiter, Saturn, and is now out in interstellar deep space. While Pioneer 11 is believed to still operate properly, NASA say that communication with Pioneer 11 has been lost since November the 30th, 1995. This means that no communication has been received from Pioneer 11 for 15 years, and no communication received from Pioneer 10 for the last 7 years. Just at the point when these probes were leaving the heliosphere bubble which surrounds our sun and solar system. Almost as if some external, possibly alien force has terminated mankind's ability to penetrate deep space beyond the natural boundary of our solar system. Pioneer 10 was fitted with a star sensor that could recognize the star Canopus and therefore could always orientate the aerial back to Earth. Perhaps NASA are lying, and the Pioneer data is being reserved for the scientific corporate elite at NASA. Or perhaps the Pioneer probes were hit by a meteorite, Another possibility is that sometime around 1995 and 2003, an alien intelligence discovered the Pioneer probes and found the gold-plated maps and used these maps to find our beautiful little blue planet.
Hello from the children of planet Earth.
Paz e felicidade a todos.
Oliviano.
सब लोगों ने मारो राम राम पहुँचे हमें अठेराजी खुशी है तुम्हें अठेराजी खुशी रह जाओ.
The other two deep space probes carrying gold-plated video discs are called Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. They are still apparently sailing into deep space. Voyager 1 is headed for a distant star called AC 793888, and Voyager 2 will eventually reach the Sirius star system. Now, Sirius is most commonly associated with the godhead of Luciferians, and is the star system which ancient legends of the Dogon tribe in Mali, in Africa, tell us live very, very intelligent amphibians called the Nomos. Ancient legends in Babylon and Africa tell us that alien amphibians from Sirius visited planet Earth long, long ago. These aliens were greeted as star gods from the heavens. They were very intellectually advanced, and even then had knowledge about genetic engineering. Right now, Voyager 1 is 10 billion miles away. So great a distance that its radio signals, which travel at almost the speed of light, take more than 14 hours to reach planet Earth. From Voyager's viewpoint, the Sun is now just another star south of Rigel in the constellation of Orion, and the Sun's planets have faded into invisibility. It will take 40,000 years traveling at 38,000 miles per hour before Voyager 1 drifts within 1.7 light years of the unnamed star AC 793888. It will take 358,000 years for Voyager 2 to approach Sirius. The golden discs aboard Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 contain many photographs and diagrams. The first images are of scientific interest, showing mathematical and physical quantities, our solar system and its planets. There are diagrams of the DNA molecule and human anatomy, and showing aliens, how humans reproduce and give birth to babies. The drawings and diagrams contain two circles in the lower right-hand corner, which represent the hydrogen atom in its two lowest states, with a connecting line and the digit number 1 to indicate that the time interval associated with the transition from one state to the other is to be used as the fundamental timescale to decode the pictures on these video discs. The golden records aboard the Voyager spacecraft are constructed of gold-plated copper and encased in aluminium. It will be very, very obvious to these aliens that our planet, planet Earth, is rich in natural resources. Certainly, it's clear you don't need to be a former Nazi rocket scientist to work out that some of the diagrams, some of the images on those Voyager golden discs have ended up being used as motifs and part of crop circle designs. Since the time that the Pioneer and Voyager probes were sent into space, and especially since the time that all communication was mysteriously lost with 2 of these probes, there has been a dramatic increase in the number of UFOs seen in the Earth's atmosphere, with UFOs flying out of tunnel-like wormholes. Vast numbers of UFOs being released from flexible, serpent-like membranes above the world's most famous capital cities. And yes, even military personnel claiming that they have seen alien bodies recovered from crashed flying saucers. More alarmingly than all of this, ordinary people all over planet Earth claim that they have been abducted and that genetic tissue was harvested from their bodies by aliens. Some of these people even claim that they have been taken to breeding facilities where government agencies work alongside aliens, breeding a new race of part human and part alien beings.